Bubbleologist here, coming to you for a second episode of Soap Bubble TV, where we're learning cool ways you can make bubbles at home during your time in lockdown. And today we are going to learn how to make our own bubble mixture with some fairy liquid or dishwashing liquid. And we're also going to learn the science. Each episode has two parts. There's the activity and then there's the science. The science is why soap helps us make bubbles. What property of soap reacts with the water in order to make bubbles. So it's very fun, it's very interesting. In short, the answer in how soap is so effective with making water and making bubbles is surface tension. Now, what is surface tension? It is the tension of the surface. Surface being the top layer, say, of the water, the surface of the water, and the tension, the pulling. Surface tension is one of the most gentle, subtle little forces of nature. It's a very, very magical one. For example, you know when you see bugs crawling on the surface of water, like in a lake, you'll see them just standing on the water. That is surface tension. And it's the same when you blow a bubble and it goes into a sphere, it pulls in like that. That is surface tension. Even if you wobble it, wobble, it'll always go back to a sphere because of its surface tension. It's also to do with minimal surface area, which is what happens when you have surface tension. We're going to get into minimal surface area in the next episode. It's quite fun. I've already made one video which was too long when I tried to get through both of them. So, for example, if we would try to make bubbles with just water, it wouldn't work because the tension of the water is too strong. So you have bubbles there, but they'll just pop straight away. And a good example of surface tension is, you can try this at home. You can fill a glass to the very top. And even once you've got it to the top, add it to all the way. You'll see the water goes above the brim of the glass. So there's water, but there's no glass on the side keeping it in. And that little layer that goes above the water like that, it's called the meniscus. And basically, the water doesn't go out because the surface tension, all the water molecules over here, are pulling the water molecules at the top. Now, soap lowers the surface tension. So it lowers it so it's not as tense anymore, it's not as strong. As soon as you add a little bit of soap, the surface tension lowers and it kind of loosens like that, it like relaxes the water molecules a little bit. And then they create a pattern which is a lot more stretched out, a lot more flexible, because the tension is a little bit lowered. Soap lowers the surface tension. Now, it's because it does this, now it's all relaxed, that we can actually make a bubble, because a bubble is like water stretched out into a sphere, because the tension is not as strong. There is still surface tension, and that's why the bubble pulls into a sphere, because it's all pulling in every direction, and then it gets to a sphere, a minimal surface area shape. Again, that's the next lesson. But that is why our bubble becomes a sphere, and that's why also soap is so useful in making bubbles. So let's take that as that's the science part of our lesson today. Soap lowers the surface tension, loosens it up so our water molecules can be a bit more flexible and stretchy, and then can make a bubble. So let's take a look now at how to make some bubbles. So you're going to need this very basic bubble recipe. It's not what I would use for a show. This is, I would usually add maybe another 3 or 4 ingredients. This is nice and basic, but trust me, you'll be amazed what you can make with just this basic bubble recipe. I was blown away. Bubbleologist watching, trust me, mind blowing. So we're going to be using water, some soap. I'm using Fairy Liquid, which is the household brand in the UK. If you're in Europe, it'll be like Dreft, which is the same thing. If you're in America, you've got Dawn, which is quite similar. South Africa, you have Sunlight liquid. It's much thinner. You might have to use a bit more. I don't know where you're watching this from, what you have available. Just try your household brand detergent. I hope it works for you. So we are going to use measuring jug, and you want to use some hot water. Not you can make it boiling if you want. I don't think it's too necessary for what we're doing today. So some nice hot water like that, and we are going to measure out 450 mils of water. And then with our soap, now a lot of people go soap, because bubbles, soap. No, myth. It's a tiny bit of soap because we just want to lower the surface tension, not too much. So we're going to add 25 mils of soap. So let's do that. All right, and then we're going to mix it up. Just give it a nice stir whenever you're doing chemistry. A good stir, make sure it's all mixed when you're making a cup of tea. And then we're going to add 2 spoons of sugar, white or black, brown sugar. Doesn't matter how healthy you are, what your dietary preferences are. Anyway, so I'm going to mix that up more nicely together. Good stir, you want all that sugar to dissolve up nicely. This is not too useful now. I was using it before, not anymore. Okay, so there we have it. We've got our bubble mixture like that. Now we need something to blow our bubbles with. So in the previous lesson we used our hands. That does still work. I'll do that in a moment. Before you make your bubbles. Oh, and by the way, a lot of bubble recipes and stuff like that, they'll tell you to let your bubble mixture settle and let it set for like a couple hours. Some say use it the next day, 6 hours. There's many things about it. Yes, it does help. It can make your bubble mixture a little bit better. For me, I can still mix some bubbles and play with them straight away and have a good time with them. If you're impatient, it's not that essential, you know. The bubble will pop either way. So you can, before you begin, bubbles are very slippery and this is going to get quite messy, especially if you do it with children. I'm doing mine over the sink, but make sure to not have your surface too slippery. If you've got very slippery floors, you're going to fall down. You don't want to fall down, hit the counter or anything like that. A bit of health and safety for you folks out there. So you can put a towel on the floor, you can put a little paddling pool, baby pool, or a basin, something to catch the liquid so you do not mess all around the place. So now that everything's secure, we're going to make a bubble. You can do it with many different tools, like a magic wand, for example. Just dip in like that and you can get yourself a nice bubble. Ooh. And once you got your bubble in there, remember every bubble is important, every bubble is special, and so you can really play with it nicely. You can move the air wafted underneath, or you can blow. You can blow to someone, they can blow it back to you. And ooh, our bubble's gonna pop soon. There we go. Predicted the future. If you don't have a straw, well, it is just a straw, that's all it is. It's a tube, or a PVC pipe or something like that. If you have a little straw, like a plastic straw, which are like illegal now, those will make very small bubbles. So you want something a little bit bigger, but hey, we're in quarantine. Let's use some normal home things like a ladle. That little hole over there, just in like that. Blow a bubble. Or you can make it nice like that. Catch it. Wobble it. Remember, every bubble pops, okay? It's what they do. Alright, so don't get upset when it pops. Just make another one and enjoy each one. It's very, very weird when you get stressed out blowing bubbles. It's odd, which many bubbleologists do. What you can also do, if you want a bigger tube, is you can just cut a bottle neck off like that. That's a little part like that. Make sure it's not too raggedy and sharp so you don't cut yourself. UK health and safety, top priority, saving the people. And then you can just pour that into a plate if you want, or if you have a bigger container. And then like that, you just dip that edge into your bubbles. And now remember, dry things pop bubbles. So if whatever you're using is wet, it will not pop bubbles as easy. So I wet my cap like that, and you can get a bubble a bit bigger. It's nice. It's a good sized bubble. You can try and catch it in. You might fail, that's okay. If you block the top like that, you can just keep it so it stops the air from being sucked out, and then you can have your bubble. You can wobble it, wobble, wobble. And you see here again, the surface tension is always pulling it back into a sphere. The bubble wants to be a sphere because a sphere has the most air and the least amount of surface area, the least amount of bubble, same amount of air. And so it just gets more, does less. It's very clever. And there's been a lot of amazing industrial and scientific and mathematical applications of this bubble. The fact that it makes a sphere due to its minimal surface area that comes from the surface tension pulling it in. So there really is a lot of interesting science just in that. And I mean, really, just soap, water, and sugar. And I mean, this is great. You know, bubbles live for a nice long time. I've had bubbles live for a couple of minutes, you know. Blowing a bubble inside a bubble, a bit difficult with it, but not impossible. So, what else you could do? If you have a younger child and they're very young, they're not succeeding too easy, you can just give them a spoon like that. And wet your spoon with the thing over there as well, so it's completely wet. And then you can blow the bubble. You can just go, oh. And then they can catch the bubble just like that. And then you can have like a bubble and spoon race or something like that. Or they can just wobble it. There's so many ways you can play and experiment, you know, just as long as you understand that if it's wet, it won't pop the bubble, and if it's a circle, you can blow a bubble with it, you know. Woo! And like I said, you can also do with your hands. Now remember, soap for dishwashing liquid has got a lot more chemicals than hand wash. Yesterday we did an episode about hand wash. Soap, it will dry your hands out a lot more, especially if you have them in for a long time. So make sure to moisturize your hands afterwards so they don't get too dry. Plus we're all washing our hands like 20 times a day. We should be moisturizing either way. Trust me, as someone who has their hands in soap for a living, get really, really dry. And just like that, slide. And then you'll find these bubbles are much better than the ones that we made yesterday in terms of what you can do with them. Some nice group activities you can do. You can make a bubble, and if someone else's hand is wet, you can just pass them the bubble, and then they can pass it back to you, and you can just share the bubble. Nice and fun. Final activity, final challenge is, and again we'll be doing a little bit more of this in one of the other episodes we do. You take a plate. White plate is best for reflecting the light, and you just take your bottle top over there like that, and you dip it in, and we're going to try blow a gigantic bubble. You can start off with that. That's great. I mean, that's even quite a big one. I mean, I'm quite impressed. I had some of these living for about 2-3 minutes actually. If you believe that, if you're a bubbleologist, I wouldn't have believed it at first. You can go down like that. You can see all the wonderful colors. Again, I've got a whole episode coming out about colors and stuff you can do on this over here. Really, really beautiful. Look out for that one. But let's take a look at the biggest one we can do. Oh, wow, that was great. And so that's my challenge to you. Get a plate, cut a bottle cap off, add 25 mils of fairy liquid to 450 mils of water, sugar, stir it up, play around, have some fun. It's good fun, you know. I mean, there's so much you can do with them, and experiment around. Still got 3 more episodes coming out of other things you can do with this bubble recipe that we've made here. So once it's done, don't throw it away. Leave it for the next day, for the next bubble challenge to come out. And you can also actually just wash your dishes with it too, because it's still just soap and water. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to send some photos, comments, send photos of you making bubbles. I would love to see all these lockdown people making bubbles, having a good time because of my efforts of talking to a camera here in the kitchen. And yeah, have fun. Cheerio. Thank you, everyone.